Welcome to this video about Time Ruler. Time Ruler is an Android application that allows you to create time-based events to manage your interruptions and filter your phone calls to stop being interrupted at inconvenient times. This video will demonstrate how events work, how to create events, how to manage events, how the 3 phone number lists work, how to add a phone number to the list, and how to add numbers from your phone book, how to manage numbers, and filtering options available to each phone number list. How do events work? Think of events as changing the state or position that each option is currently in. Choose a number of actions to happen at the date and time specified. Events do the task specified, but you need to create another event to change them back. Go ahead and start up Time Ruler now, so I can start showing you about events. So we'll go and create an event first, which we can either create, modify, or view existing events. So I'll put in a brief description for this event, which will show up when a notification is triggered as this event. So for this event, we have a number of actions that can take place, being Bluetooth, mobile network data, or Wi-Fi, which can either be enabled or disabled. And if we choose no action, it will be ignored for this time. Again, we've got a blacklist, grey list, or white list, which we'll cover off a bit more later, but these can either be enabled or disabled also. Then for underneath set volume, we've got ringer mode, which we can either choose silent, which will allow us to ignore calls with no sound and no vibrations, vibrate only being just no sound, or sound and vibrate, which would bring us back to the previously set volume. We've also got ringer volume, which controls phone calls, notifications volume, which controls SMS, email, and game notifications, system volume, which controls button presses, warnings, alarms volume, which controls the alarm set via the clock, and media volume, which includes music and in-game sounds. So go ahead and set up a trigger for this event. So it can either be based on date and time or just the date. So we're going to choose date and time, and for a few minutes time. And then events can either repeat or just run for a one-time event. So we're going to make this one repeat so I can show you the options here. So events can either repeat on specific days, which we can choose from the 7 days of the week below, or we can go for a more advanced approach and enter a custom period. So we're going to set up our event to trigger every 5 hours. So we can either choose minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years. Then we can either have the event repeat forever or time out after a specified period of time. So we're going to make this one time out. So we either choose it to time out on a specified date or after a specified quantity of time that it has executed. So we're going to make this one disable itself after 5 times. Then we have the choice to either remove the event or just disable itself at the end of its cycle. If you prefer to use it again later, then just disable. There we have it. That's creating an event, and if there's any issues with that event when you press the create button, you'll have a nice little warning popped up. So now I'll show you how to modify and view current events. So from the second button we can view scheduled events, which if we click this event we can then go in and modify it. So we can make any adjustments such as the event actions, change the volume settings, change the triggers, or any of the other settings such as the recursion. And then once we press the update button, that will override the current event with these new settings. We could instead copy this event, which would duplicate it, which is great if you're using one to enable and then another to disable. Or we could simply disable this event and stop it from being triggered, or if this event is disabled, re-enable and putting it back into the schedule. We could also remove this event for good, stopping it from being triggered at all. Okay, let's add a phone number to our number list. Go up the top and hit the Add Number button. We can then choose which list we want to add the number to. being either blacklist, grey list, or whitelist. These three lists have different options on how phone calls are handled. You can then type in a brief description about what this number is, and then the phone number, remembering the time ruler checks that the phone number ends with these digits. And then all you have to do is hit the add button at the bottom. We've also got a conveniently located add private/block number button. There we go, the phone number has been added to the list successfully. So let's see that it's now in our whitelist. We hit the last button at the top, the phone book. There we go, our friend is in our whitelist. Now let's add a phone number from our phone book. And just press the phone contact list button. There we have it. That's the numbers from our contact list. Click your contact, and their details have been imported across. And we'll click add, and they'll be added to the list. Now we'll go back to our phone number list so we can then show how to edit a phone number. So from our white list to grey list and black list. So how about we move one of our grey list numbers? So we can change the number, say it was typed in incorrectly, and let's move them to the blacklist. We no longer want to get phone numbers from this person. And then hit update. There we go. Simple as that. The phone number has now been moved to the blacklist, and the phone number has been updated. Now if we scroll back to the blacklist, we have them there. And it's quite simple, just scroll across blacklist, grey list, and white. So the last section we're going to cover off here is how to change the settings for the phone number lists. So if we go into the phone number list via the last button at the top, and then hit your phone's menu button, we can go into the settings menu. So we can either choose to enable or disable the calls filter altogether, which if this is disabled, none of the call lists will be acted upon. So we'll go through the phone list settings, which are the same for each list, so we'll just cover off the blacklist. So for the blacklist, for example, we can either enable or disable the list altogether, which means we won't take any action on these numbers. Although if it is enabled, we can choose which action to take. So we can choose no action, which is the same as being disabled, silent or ignore, which will be no sound and no vibrations, vibrate only, which is no sound, or sound and vibrate, which will set the phone back to the previously used volume. Or we can adjust the volume to whatever we decide. So we've chosen adjust volume, so we can also choose which volume to set it to. So we can choose anywhere from 0% all the way through to 100% in 10% increments. Although there's sometimes you may need to override calls to allow them through, say if they've called you 10 times in 5 minutes, it must be urgent. So we can choose which time frame to let them through in. So if they're called within a 30-minute period, we may want to allow them through. And then we can choose which quantity, so how many times they call within that period specified. So if they call 5 times within 15 minutes, the call will be allowed through as normal. Thank you for watching, and I hope you now have a great understanding of how Time Ruler works. Time Ruler is now available on the Google Play Store.